Hey guys, tonight we step into sandals worn thousands of years ago. Not for war, not for glory, but for ice. Yes, in the scorching summers of 500 BCE Zhou Dynasty China, there were real people, low-ranking, sweaty, wildly underappreciated, who hand-delivered giant blocks of winter ice across treacherous terrain to noble households and imperial kitchens. You're going to be one of them. The sun hasn't risen yet, but your back is already damp. You wake on a tightly rolled straw mat laid out under a rough canopy roof. The air is thick, unmoving, a kind of blanket that clings to your skin before you've even sat up. Around you, snores rise from other couriers sprawled out like wilted turnips, some of them tangled in their robes, others already scratching mosquito bites. Someone groans and mutters something about losing half his load to a pothole yesterday. You blink. Today's your first real assignment. A full block of ice, packed in straw and wrapped in silk, bound for the provincial tax office 3 Lees south. That's about 8 kilometers, or roughly an eternity when you're dragging a wooden cart in July. The official scroll was delivered just before sunset yesterday. This ice, harvested from the northern pits, shall be delivered unspoiled and untainted by sun, sweat, or theft, to the office of grain and salt before the hour of monkey. Which sounds important until you realize the office of grain and salt is managed by a man who drinks lukewarm barley tea and collects antique buttons. Still, an assignment's an assignment. And most importantly, this means pay. Maybe even a week's worth of dried fish and clean water. Assuming you don't die of heat stroke first. You sit up slowly, bones creaking like bamboo in wind. Your linen tunic clings damply to your back. Outside the sleeping hut, there's a faint rustle, someone already strapping oxen into harnesses. The older couriers, the ones with leathery skin and sandals worn smooth as river stones, are always first to rise. They say the ice listens, and it melts faster for lazy men. The wooden floor creaks as you roll your mat. You grab your carved bamboo water gourd and slosh the remaining sips into your mouth, already lukewarm. A hint of mint from yesterday's chewing leaf lingers. Not unpleasant, not useful either. Your pack's light today. A scroll for authorization, a packet of dried rice paste, a tiny carving of the ice spirit you were told to keep in your pocket for luck. It mostly looks like a frog. And the all-important delivery token, carved from sandalwood and inked with the seal of the ice pits. You step outside. It's still mostly dark. The sky glows faint pink. Birds whispering from fig trees. The faint trill of a reed flute drifting from some nearby apprentice with ambition and no sense of timing. Your cart, modest, two-wheeled, built from lacquered cypress wood and lashed with sinew, is already being pulled from the storage shed. Its surface is stained from last week's fish deliveries, but it will do. Inside the cart, already packed by the quartermaster, rests the prize, a block of ancient winter, roughly the size of a collapsed dog. Clear, hard, cold, colder than anything else in your world, and wrapped tightly in straw mats soaked in salt water, with an outer layer of thick silk dyed indigo. It said the finest ice smells faintly of pine needles. You lean in and sniff. It mostly smells like wet goat. Still, it sparkles under the dim light. You touch it quickly, cold enough to bite. One of the older couriers hobbles over. His name is something like Uncle Crab. He's missing 2 toes and swears one melted off during a summer route to Wu. You packed it tight? He rasps. I didn't pack it, you admit. Then blame no one when it weeps. That's courier code for melting. Uncle Crab eyes you, then thumps the cart once with his cane and moves on, grumbling about apprentices with no respect for condensation. You take the oxen's reins, smooth the silk again, and make the ritual gesture toward the north, the direction of ice. Just a subtle flick of the fingers, supposed to bring protection, or at least shade. Then, with a creak and a groan, you begin your journey. As the wheels crunch over gravel and straw, the sky begins to brighten. You pass other couriers heading toward different routes, one dragging a basket of lotus wine bottles, another trying to balance 3 clay jugs on his head. A pair of young girls run past carrying a slab of salt between them like a wounded pig. And you? You are the keeper of coolness, the guardian of a perishable treasure, a block of winter in a world already sweating through spring. You trudge forward as the road begins to shimmer with early heat. So begins your day. Your cart squeaks with every turn of the wheels. It's a sound that'll probably haunt your dreams tonight, high-pitched, repetitive, like a teapot slowly going insane. You've barely cleared the edge of the courier compound when the first obstacle looms into view, a long stone bridge with a gentle incline, and beyond it, the rising sun waiting like a judge with no patience. The token in your sash burns against your skin, not literally, of course, but with the quiet weight of bureaucracy. The scroll says you must deliver the ice untainted, which in imperial terms means not even slightly smaller than when it left the pit. Which is hilarious, honestly. The ice started sweating before you even left. You pull your oxen gently to a stop and check the wrapping again. Straw's damp, silk's intact. You press your hand to the outer layer, still cool, but noticeably less icy than it was 20 minutes ago. You mutter an apology to the ice spirit and tighten the cords, just as you're preparing to cross the bridge. A second cart approaches from the opposite direction. It's being pulled by a younger boy with oversized sleeves and a look of cheerful incompetence. His cart is stacked high with firewood. "Hot day," he calls out, beaming. You look at your precious block of melting treasure, then at his tower of dry sticks. It's like fate is actively mocking you. You nod, expression neutral. "Trade," he jokes. You do not laugh. The ice spirit would not be amused. Once across the bridge, the path widens into a gravel road that follows the curve of the river. The air shimmers, already thick with the scent of algae and warm stone. Insects buzz like tiny boiling kettles in the grass. You squint ahead, gauging shadows. You're racing two things now, the sun and the limits of your own sweat glands. The imperial roads aren't as glamorous as court poets pretend. There are ruts so deep you can lose a sandal, stray chickens with no sense of self-preservation, and stone markers so eroded they point to entirely fictional villages. You make your way slowly, whispering encouragement to the oxen. They're named Lo and Lee, or possibly Lo and Ugh, which is the sound a second one makes every few steps. As you settle into a steady rhythm, a memory rises, something from your training week. The quartermaster, bald as a boiled gourd, had once told you, ice isn't just cold, it's political. The higher the rank, the more they need to stay cool. That's why they give you the worst roads, so their ice doesn't melt along the way. You didn't fully understand it at the time. Now it's starting to make sense. About a league down the road, you reach a small way station, a rest stop for couriers, traders, and oxen with unfortunate bowel timing. You pull over beneath the shade of a creaky mulberry tree and dab your forehead with your sleeve. Another courier lounges nearby, sipping tepid tea from a bamboo cup. His tunic is dyed a deep plum, which means he works for the Ministry of Salt, the wealthier department. His oxen are painted with pale red dots, which you've been told is for good luck, but might just be courier fashion. You delivering perishables? He asks lazily. You nod. Ice. You nod again. He whistles. That's brutal. You better repack it before the third milestone, or it'll be soup. You glance at your cargo. It hasn't wept yet, but the silk has darkened slightly at the corners. Not good. Following protocol, you begin the mid-morning repack. You loosen the outer cords, unwrap the silk carefully, and peel back the damp straw. The ice block glistens like a sleeping pearl. You whisper a little nonsense prayer. You're not sure if it's Taoist or something your grandmother made up, and pat the edges dry with a cloth. Then, you add a second layer of cooling powder, crushed lotus root mixed with dried camphor leaves, along the silk lining. It's an old trick, one you overheard during lunch break from a courier who once delivered to the palace. As you tighten the wrappings again, you notice a tiny crack along one corner of the block, barely visible, but it's there. You sigh. The ice spirit is clearly in a mood. The other courier eyes your cart thoughtfully. You know, he says, back in the day, they'd have kids run the ice instead. Faster. Lighter didn't ask questions. Did the ice survive? Not really, he grins. You nod politely. Offer him the remains of your rice paste. and move on. The road curves again, this time through a grove of bamboo, so tall it blots out the sun. Cool shadows fall across your shoulders, and for a moment, the cart feels lighter. The oxen even grunt with something that could be interpreted as relief. You take a deep breath. It smells like damp earth and distant thunder. Somewhere behind the bamboo, a bird calls 3 sharp notes. A warning? Or just an opinionated pigeon? You keep moving. The shadows won't last. The 3rd milestone stone is mossy, cracked, and probably lying about how far you've come. Still, tradition demands you acknowledge it. You pause, reach out, and tap the stone 3 times with your knuckle. It's a small ritual, meant to honor all the feet, hooves, and wheels that came before yours. Or maybe it's just for luck. Couriers aren't a superstitious bunch, except when they are. Your oxen don't care. Lo swats a fly with his tail. He tries to eat a leaf that is definitely not edible. You check the ice again. Still cool, still solid, but it's begun to sweat in earnest. Little rivulets now run down the straw. Not enough to panic. Yet, but definitely enough to inspire muttered curses under your breath. The pits where this ice was harvested were dug in the dead of winter. Huge, stone-lined hollows packed with snow, sealed with mud, and left to turn into rock-hard treasure. Each block was carved, stored in darkness, and then reburied beneath straw and clay in imperial vaults. To get one, even as a low-tier delivery, means someone important up the chain thinks you might be competent. No pressure. As you tie the wrappings tighter, your memory drifts to your first lesson about these ancient pits. The overseer, an old woman with a voice like sandpaper, told your class, "This ice is not for you. It is for the throat of power. Your job is not to question why. Your job is to make sure it doesn't become water before it reaches a silver bowl." She had a way with poetry and threats. As you trundle onward, the landscape flattens. Rice fields stretch on either side, glistening with irrigation channels and dragonflies. Farmers in wide-brimmed hats bend silently to their work. You envy them, in a way, rooted, wet, and not responsible for portable refrigeration. Then again, they probably don't get scrolls with royal stamps. The sun climbs. It now feels like someone's holding a lacquered wok over your head and slowly turning up the heat. You reach for your water gourd. It's warm, but still refreshing. Barely. Your cart hits a rut and jolts. The ice inside shifts, bumping softly like a restless spirit. You steady it and mutter a formal apology. The ice spirit is said to be fickle. Sometimes a puff of cold air on a fevered brow. Sometimes a biting wind across a funeral pyre. One instructor claimed the spirit once froze a tax inspector's tongue mid-sentence. Others say the story was invented to keep kids from licking temple walls in winter. You wonder what the spirit thinks of you. Probably that you should walk faster. You pass a cluster of roadside vendors, mostly elderly women selling tea, dried melon, and gossip. One calls out, "Sweet milk curd, only 3 copper." Then she spots the card. "Ice? You're late. The salt magistrate's boy came through 2 hours ago." You smile weakly. "I'm not late. I'm efficient." Another vendor cackles, efficient like a sweating duck. Your oxen snort in agreement. Traders. But one vendor, a quieter figure in a gray robe, beckons you aside. She holds up a bundle of mint leaves wrapped in damp cloth. "Place this near the silk," she says, "keeps the spirit content. And it smells nicer than you do." You trade a copper for the bundle, tucking it near the corner of the ice. It does smell better, like mountain streams and roasted barley. Maybe there's something to the folk wisdom after all. Back on the road, you quicken the pace. The sun's nearly overhead now, no shadows left to hide in. You adjust your straw hat and squint at the road ahead. A cloudless sky, not ideal. And then, like a gift from the ancestors, you spot a cluster of travelers ahead, parked oxen, umbrellas, noise. A checkpoint, the provincial patrol, just what you needed. You groan softly. These checkpoints are notorious for 3 things: pointless inspections, lectures on civic virtue, and guards with very little respect for the urgency of melting cargo. As you approach, a young officer waves you over with a lacquer baton. He wears a crisp red sash and the expression of someone who failed the imperial exams and now takes it out on anyone with a delivery permit. State your name, route, and purpose, he drones. Ice Courier. Route 3. Southern delivery for grain magistrate. He squints at the card. Is that ice? You nod. From where? Northern Pit. Pulled yesterday. Packed overnight. Scroll, verified. He sighs. We'll need to inspect the contents. For contraband. You try to remain calm. It's ice. He nods solemnly, as though you just revealed an elaborate disguise. Still, he motions for a helper. The assistant approaches, fingers twitching with curiosity. You know the drill. If they unwrap it completely, the block will lose 20 minutes of chill. If they use that ridiculous brass probe, it'll melt around the edge. And if they drop something on it, the spirit may not forgive you. You sigh. Be gentle. She bites. The assistant chuckles nervously. They peel back the silk, squint at the straw, poke the surface. One leans in to sniff. It smells like goat, he mutters. That's intentional, you lie. Camouflage. Eventually, they wave you on. You rewrap quickly, bow, and trudge forward. The checkpoint fades behind you. The ice has lost a sliver. You can feel it. Not fatal, but annoying. You whisper to the spirit again. You're still in the game. Barely. Your cart wheels creak back into rhythm as you leave the checkpoint behind. The road slopes gently now, down into a shaded valley where bamboo thins and fig trees take over. For the first time since dawn, the heat isn't a hammer. It's a blanket, still oppressive, but not quite as aggressive. Your oxen grunt approvingly. It's time for another ice check. You slow the cart beside a mossy stone wall and untie the cords. This time you unwrap more carefully, letting your fingers feel the silk's damp weight and the slight give in the straw matting beneath. The ice is smaller. No denying it. Edges that were once sharp are now soft as dumpling dough. You sigh and pat it dry again, then repack with the same reverence you'd give to an imperial baby. While tying the cords, you remember your first day in training, where the instructors taught you about wrapping geometry. The key, they said, was layering. The silk must be folded in alternating directions, east-west, then north-south, to trap the coolness. Straw goes on the outside, never directly on the ice because it scratches the surface and angers the chi. The final wrap is symbolic. It forms a rough pentagon, to mimic the traditional talisman for preserving freshness. Whether that part actually helps is unconfirmed. But the couriers who skip the ritual wrapping, their carts always come back wet and empty. As you finish resecuring the load, you adjust the herbs. The vendor's mint bundle has wilted but still smells divine. You tuck it closer to the melting corner, like a whispered apology. Then, your traveling companion finally speaks. Not the oxen. No, the rope tender. He's a lanky teen assigned to your journey, barely old enough to grow a beard and already bored out of his skull. His job is simple. If the cart tips, he yells. If the oxen spook, he holds the reins. If the courier dies of heat stroke, he delivers the rest of the load. Not ideal, but practical. I heard, he says, idly picking dirt from under a fingernail, that the emperor's ice never melts. You grunt. Of course not. He doesn't take it outside. No, really, he insists. They say it's wrapped in dragon silk and blessed by a snow monk from the Kunlun Mountains. Lasts for weeks. You raise an eyebrow. Dragon silk? He shrugs. That's just what they say. You squint to the road ahead. They also say cucumbers cure baldness. I heard that too. Don't believe everything you hear. But part you wonders, is there really such a thing as melt-proof silk? Could snow monks exist? Probably not. But maybe, as you descend the hill, the terrain flattens into a scrubby patch of farmland, dotted with scarecrows and sun-cracked irrigation ditches. Ahead, a group of schoolchildren sit cross-legged beneath a banyan tree, listening to a wrinkled, old storyteller with a voice like boiled ginger. And so the first ice spirit emerged from a snowflake that never melted, he's saying. And she married the god of morning fog, and their daughter invented refrigeration. The kids laugh. You can't help but smile. Somewhere in the back of your mind, the story plants a seed. Maybe you'll tell it to the next wide-eyed rookie courier you meet. Let them worry about the fog god's daughter and her judgment. You pass the group slowly. One child stares at your card, eyes wide. Is that real ice? You nod. He gasps. Don't let the fox spirits steal it. Fox spirits? You offer him a solemn nod. I'll keep it under watch. He beams. The next halfly goes smoothly. Birds chirp. A breeze stirs. You pass a shrine to the river god and toss in a copper for luck. The oxen grunt their approval. Even your rope tender hums a little tune, some folk melody about traveling merchants and runaway soup pots. Then, with all the elegance of a collapsing rice stack, the cart jerks to the left. Listumblas. A wheel drops into a hidden ditch. Your cargo thunks against the side. You lurch forward, gripping the reins. The cart rights itself, but not before something heavy inside gives a dull crack. Not good. You stop. Breathe. Clench your jaw. Then slowly, carefully, you unwrap the block again. Disaster. A corner has broken off. It lies in the bottom of the straw mat like a guilty dumpling. Slick, dripping, useless. About the size of your hand. You poke it. It slumps in defeat. The rope tender peers over your shoulder. Are we doomed? Not yet. You check the main block. Still intact, but now visibly smaller. The silk's soaked through. The straw's half soggy. It's not a catastrophe, but it's not ideal. Not for an imperial delivery. Not for your reputation. You gather the broken piece with a piece of linen, wrap it separately, and place it beside the main block. A backup. Maybe the magistrate won't measure. Maybe. You sigh and look to the sky. The sun's still climbing. Still bright. Still merciless. Your oxen look at you with the patience of creatures who've seen worse. You wipe your forehead, whisper another apology to the ice spirit, and coax the cart forward. Somewhere ahead, a city gate waits. So does a grumpy scribe with a measuring stick, and possibly a fox spirit. The road straightens into a long, dusty stretch bordered by wild millet and scrub trees. You can see heat rising in waves, dancing off the path like a smug mirage. The oxen plod on, loyal but slow, their hooves muffled in the dry earth. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk screeches, probably laughing at your melting misfortune. You glance down at the cart again. The broken shard of ice now looks more like a sad, slippery pebble. You gently press a finger to the remaining main block. Still firm, still cold, but softer around the edges. Like a once crisp dumpling left in the soup too long. You tell yourself it's enough. That bureaucrats don't notice missing corners. That the scroll didn't say perfect ice, just untainted. And unless the magistrate's definition of taint includes road-rattled shrinkage, you still have a chance. Your rope tender is no help. He's singing again. The song is an old merchant's tune about a man who tried to sell water to a rainstorm and got slapped by a monk. It's catchy in the most annoying way possible. You decide not to murder him. Yet, just ahead, the silhouette of a tea pavilion peaks above the trees. It's the halfway point between your dispatch station and the provincial gate, a traditional rest spot for travelers, gossip mongers, and the occasional minor noble avoiding paperwork. As you roll in, the shade of the overhanging roof washes over you like a cool sigh. Your oxen stop on cue, clearly familiar with this pause. You hop down like stiff and stretch your arms until your spine pops like a bamboo flute. Inside the pavilion, a few figures lounge with clay cups and gossip fans. One, a courier with a green sash and a towel over his head, gives you the classic nod of shared suffering. Ice run, he asks. You nod. North Pit or Valley Vault? North. He whistles softly. Better source. Worse road. You sit beside him. Unwrap your bundle, just enough to check the melting pattern. He peers over your shoulder with curiosity. Still holding shape. You got lucky. Lost a corner, you admit. He snorts. Could have lost the whole block. You hear about SEMA from Route 9? Cart snapped a wheel last week. He tried to carry the block the last Lee on his back. Did it work? Nope. The drink is warm but tangy. It stirs you back into clarity. Nearby, a scholar is attempting to explain something to a bored traveler using 3 walnut shells and a string. The traveler looks like he would rather be boiled. Your rope tender is napping under the cart. Lucky. You give yourself 15 more minutes. In that time, you check the cords, adjust the silk, and replace a layer of mint with a newer sprig. The tea seller slips you a scrap of soap paper to lay beneath the block. A folk trick, she says from the deep western valleys. Pulls the sweat downward. Does it work? Only if you believe in it. You believe in desperation, which is close enough. Back on the road, the terrain shifts again. More stone, less soil. You're getting close to town. The trees grow thinner, replaced by shrines, old milestones, and the occasional carved lion that looks more like a bloated cat. Let the official be nearsighted. Let no one ask questions. The rope tender stirs. Did you say something? No. He blinks, yawns, and points ahead. Smoke. That's the outpost. Indeed, a lazy trail of smoke curls from a tower just beyond the trees. A flag flutters beside it, red with a silver coin painted in the center. The symbol of the tax office. Your destination. Your heart does something weird. Not quite a flutter. Not quite dread. You squint. There's still one checkpoint to pass. It's small. 2 guards, a logbook, and a bamboo pole blocking the path. You approach carefully, nodding politely. They look bored, which is good. One is gnawing a candied chestnut. The other is poking at a cracked abacus. Courier, the chestnut man asks. Ice. For the provincial grain office. He eyes the cart. You're late. I'm early. Early is suspicious. You pause. Suspicious is unnecessary. The abacus guy chuckles. He speaks like a clerk. Chestnut shrugs. Open the cart. You do. Slowly. Reverently. They peer inside. One sniffs. One pokes gently at the silk. Still cold, abacus guy notes. Still big, chestnut guy agrees. Fine. Let him through. You breathe. The bamboo pole rises. Your oxen step forward. You're almost there. Almost. The provincial outpost looms into view like a stubborn sunburn. Low, flat, and unimpressed with your effort. Red lacquered beams support the tiled roof, and scrolls of regulation hang beside the gate, slowly flapping in the breeze like judgmental tongues. A carved sign reads, Office of Grain and Salt. Deliveries by authorized token only. Melting not tolerated. Charming. You tug gently on the reins. Logrons. He stops to inspect a suspicious patch of mud. Your rope tender straightens his hat and looks suddenly alert, as if he might be mistaken for someone important if he stands up straighter. You'd laugh, but her mouth's too dry. The guard at the gate is a woman with arms like rolling pins and a face that could sour vinegar. She eyes your cart with a suspicion reserved for couriers, stray dogs, and poorly bundled firewood. Name and contents, she says flatly. You present your scroll and token. Block of pit-harvested ice, destined for the senior clerk of the Office of Grain and Salt. Routed from a north pit under permit 327 bow. She inspects the scroll, sniffs it for some reason, and waves you in. Inside the courtyard, everything is hotter, somehow. The tiled stones reflect the heat back at you like a grudge. Several other couriers are unloading their cargo. Bolts of linen, barrels of dried millet, a basket of surprisingly angry geese. You ignore them all and head for the shaded, awning-marked perishables. The irony is not lost on you. A clerk sits beneath it, scribbling with the intensity of someone who finds joy in paperwork. He doesn't look up as you approach. Item, ice, you say. That gets his attention. He squints up at you, then at the cart, then back to you. Unspoiled? As unspoiled as 3 hours in a straw cart allows. Form 22S. You hand it over. He reads it slowly, as if hoping it will confess to a crime. And the token? You present the sandalwood token. He sniffs that too. What is it with everyone smelling things today? Finally, he sighs and nods to a bored assistant who rolls out a cloth mat beside the cart. Unpack for measurement. You feel your stomach tighten. This is it. Gingerly, you unwrap the silk. The mint bundle is barely a shadow of its former self. The straw squelches slightly as you lift it. The ice gleams, still solid, but smaller than it started. A clear chunk missing from a back corner. You angle it subtly away from the clerk. He produces a measuring stick and steps forward. Historians still argue whether these measurements were ever consistent. Some claim each clerk had their own preferred dimensions, based on whim, mood, or the alignment of the stars. Others argue the measuring stick was symbolic, used more to remind couriers of their low status than to record precise data. One ancient scholar famously wrote, "When the clerk's stick is long, the courier's neck shortens." No one knows exactly what that means, but it feels right today. The clerk measures the length, then the width, then the depth, then the weight using a scale that squeaks worse than your card. He grunts. The assistant writes something. The clerk sighs and looks at you. It's within acceptable loss margins. You exhale too quickly. You feel your knees. But, he adds, the corner damage means the magistrate might reduce your bonus. You manage to keep your face neutral. Understood. He scribbles a note and stamps your scroll. Then, to your surprise, he leans in slightly, lowering his voice. You want a tip? You blink. Sure. Next time, rub the inside silk with vinegar and salt ash. Keeps the air cooler inside. Found that in my cousin's herbal book. You nod solemnly. Appreciated. Also, don't let Lee eat mushrooms by the roadside. You stare. Ow. She does it every week. You glance at Lee, who looks vaguely smug. You sigh. A second assistant lifts the ice block with tongs and carries it toward the cool cellar. You watch it go like a parent seeing off a school child who's already bitten 2 teachers. Then the clerk waves you away. Next, you step aside, dizzy with relief. You did it. Barely. You tuck your scroll into your pack, retrieve your, now entirely decorative, rope tender, and lead your oxen to the shade of a pomegranate tree. They grunt in unison and sit. You drop to the ground beside them. In the distance, a bell chimes. Lunch. The tea cellar inside the compound offers you a bowl of noodles and pickled radish for 1 copper. You trade her 2, just for the extra broth. As you sip, you reflect. You've survived heat, ruts, fox spirit rumors, checkpoint delays, and a stick-happy clerk. You delivered a block of ice against all odds. It may not seem like much, but today you were a winter breeze in a summer empire. And that, my friend, is a small miracle. You lean back against the cool bark of the pomegranate tree, slurping the last of your noodle broth with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious rituals and silk-trimmed pay scrolls. The sun, now halfway down its arc, casts soft gold over the courtyard, and for the first time all day you're not sweating. At least, not visibly. Lee snores softly beside you. Lo chews something indeterminate. The rope tender is still humming, this time a slower, sadder tune about a fisherman who forgot how to swim. It's peaceful, which is suspicious. You don't trust it, and you're right not to, because just as you close your eyes to rest them, a small, panting figure skids to a halt in front of you, nearly tripping over her own oversized boots. She's young, maybe 13, and wearing the official sash of the Courier Apprentice Guild. Her hair's tied up in the functional, but wildly lopsided "I didn't have time" bun, and her ink-stained fingers clutch a scroll. "Are you Ice Courier Bow?" she gasps. You sigh. "I was." She thrusts the scroll into your lap. Reroute notice. Emergency delivery. New destination. Direct dispatch from the Southern Archive. You unroll the scroll, blinking in disbelief. Your ice block, the one you just delivered wrapped, measured, and tearfully bade farewell to, is being reassigned. Not to a cold cellar. Not to a kitchen. No. It's being transferred again, this time to the magistrate of T-Tax records. In a completely different district. By you. Apparently, the grain clerk's household already had ice, and yours looked more symmetrical. You groan. Loudly. The girl flinches. "I can take it. If you want." "No," you sigh. "The spirit wouldn't notice." You haul yourself up. The rope tender, sensing movement, instantly pretends he wasn't napping. You toss him the reins. "New route," you say. "Northwest quarter." "Teatapes." He groans. You nod. "Exactly." You trudge back into the office, scroll in hand, and flag down the assistant who carried your block. He looks confused, like you've come to reclaim a discarded pair of socks. You hand over the scroll. He reads, sighs, and fetches the block from storage. It's smaller, somehow, but still solid. Mostly. It glistens with the smug sweat of something that knows it's winning. You rewrap it, checking the silk and straw, tightening the cords with slightly more aggression than necessary. The mint bundle is mush now. You replace it with a sprig of dried orange peel from your emergency pouch. It's not cooling, but at least it smells expensive. Back on the cart. Back on the road. You glance at the sky. Mid-afternoon. Plenty of sun left. Plenty of time to fail spectacularly. The road toward the T-Tax office is narrower, cobbled in places, and full of people who believe their destination is more important than yours. You swerve around a monk balancing a tray of fish. You dodge a herd of goats in single-file formation. You apologize to a man selling bean buns who now owns half a wheel print in his inventory. Your rope tender mutters, "This road is cursed." You nod. The ice is cursed. Ahead, a small crowd blocks the road. Something about a broken sandal and a spilled cart of squash. You veer off onto a side path, praying it reconnects before your block turns into glorified soup. The detour winds through a residential lane. Stone houses with green-tiled roofs, low gates, and laundry lines that try to clothesline you on every corner. You duck under shirts and over sarongs, whispering apologies and the occasional nice stitching. Finally, you emerge into a quiet courtyard, wide, circular, and dominated by a single cherry tree. You pause for breath, and then you hear it. Crack. No, 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 no. You leap down, unfasten the cords, and peel back the silk. The ice block now has two visible fissures. Not fatal, but spreading. Like gossip at a bridal feast. You do the only thing you can do. You repack it tighter, whispering to the ice spirit with a tone of strained diplomacy. I know this isn't ideal. I know we've made compromises. But I swear, one more Lee. That's all. And I'll burn a mint bundle in your honor. A fresh one. The spirit remains silent. But the cracks stop widening. You take that as a win. By the time you arrive at the office of T-Tax, your entire body feels like it's made of steamed buns and regret. The clerk at the gate is young and suspiciously cheerful. He claps his hands when he sees the cart. Oh, is that the rerouted North Pit ice? You nod grimly. Wonderful. The inspector's getting migraines again. Ice helps his mood. You grunt. They bring out the scale and the measuring stick again. This time, the block is borderline. The clerk hesitates. You panic. You reach into your pouch and pull out a scrap of paper, folded, scented with orange, and hand it over. Complimentary aroma layer, you say. He beams. Oh, elegant touch. Approved. You exhale. Again, the block is carried in. You slump against your cart, brain buzzing with heat. Your rope tender pulls out a bag of candied chestnuts. Offers you one. You take it. You chew. You watch the sun dip just slightly lower in the sky. And think, maybe you'll get to go home now. You don't get to go home. Because fate, as you've learned, has a sense of humor as dry as your socks are wet. You're halfway through savoring that chestnut, sweet, sticky, with just a hint of mystery powder, when a panting official sprints out of the T-Tax office, waving a ribbon-stamped scroll like it's on fire. "Courier bow," he shouts. "Urgent addendum. New final destination." You nearly choke. He skids to a halt beside your cart, gulps air like a fish in a wok, and thrusts the scroll at you. You stare at it. "No," you say flatly. "Yes." He pants. "From the governor's office." You read the scroll. It's written in that overly cheerful calligraphy bureaucrats use when they're trying to ruin your life politely. Apparently, the tea inspector owes a favor to the governor's assistant, who has a dinner banquet tonight, and now your humble, overworked, structurally compromised ice block is being rerouted to a residence on the far side of the city. You groan like a collapsing bridge. The rope tender says, "You want me to faint for sympathy?" "No." He shrugs. "I'm ready if needed." You unwrap the block one last time. The corners are now more rounded suggestions than edges. It looks like a bar of soap that survived too many hot baths and one existential crisis. Still it glistens. Still cold. Still ice adjacent. You whisper, "If you survive this, I swear I'll give you a name." The road to the governor's district is narrow, winding, and, most importantly, uphill. You coax the oxen forward. They protest. You protest harder. Eventually, the cart begins its reluctant climb. The city around you changes as you rise. The walls are cleaner. The air smells like incense and bureaucracy. You pass a silkworm merchant explaining worm psychology to a confused tourist. You dodge a monk rolling a barrel labeled cleansing vinegar, do not taste. A dog watches your cart like it's the best meal he's never had. The road forks. The right path leads uphill. The left is flat. You sigh and go right. The incline is brutal. The oxen huff. Your knees creak. Even your rope tender stops humming and starts praying. Halfway up, you have to jump down and push from behind while your shoes slip against the polished stone. A passing noblewoman offers you a pitying look before returning to her palanquin filled with chilled lychees. You whisper to the ice spirit again. Just a little farther. Just 2 turns and a gate. You made it this far. I believe in you. Please don't become a memory. You reach the top. Barely. The governor's assistant is already outside, fanning himself with a scroll and pacing like an overcooked shrimp. About time, he snaps. You don't have the energy to reply with words. You just point to the block. He peers inside. Still cold? You nod. Still firm. You shrug. He waves a pair of servants forward. They carry the block away on a lacquered tray lined with lotus leaves and disappointment. You slump against the cart. Your rope tender lies flat on his back, hat over his face. You wait. Minutes pass. Then the assistant returns. He hands you a stamped receipt. And, miracle of miracles, a coin. A large one. Delivery bonus, he says. You stare at it. Real silver. Enough to buy a new cartwheel. Or several dumplings. Or 2 dumplings and a very small nap. You accept it with both hands, bow slightly, and say the most honest thing you've said all day. Thank you. The assistant nods and retreats. You turn your oxen. We're going home. Li Felix Hertai. Luis Nifis. The rope tender grunts something about soup. You roll slowly downhill into the softer shade of early evening, the city around you now golden and gentle. Shopkeepers light lanterns. Children chase chickens. Somewhere, a flute plays a sleepy tune. You delivered a block of ice through heat, detours, bureaucracy, and multiple reassignments. The block shrank, but you didn't crack. Not entirely. The road back feels different. Not just because the cart is lighter, or because the sun is finally lowering behind the tiled roofs, casting long slants of gold across the worn stone. No, what you feel is deeper, somewhere between your shoulder blades and your spleen. A combination of exhaustion, vindication, and a vague craving for pickled turnip. Lee and Lo walk easier now. Hooves softer on the earth, almost smug. You think they know. You think they always know. You reach a little square near the Western Market Gate, where a handful of vendors are packing up their stalls. A rice ball peddler sees your empty cart and gives a thumbs up. Sold out early? You nod. Delivered late. He laughs. That's still a win. You buy 2 rice balls, one for you, one for the rope tender. He takes it like it's a medal of honor and immediately drops half of it into his lap. You both sit on the edge of a dry fountain, chewing slowly as a breeze wafts past. A cat jumps onto the cart and declares herself queen. You let her. As your teeth sink into the rice and salted plum center, your thoughts drift, not forward, but backward, back to where this whole thing started, the ice pits. Ah yes, the sacred northern pit. You remember the shivering pre-dawn climb into its depths. The way the temperature dropped like a scolding grandmother the moment you passed the 3rd marker stone. The cold there isn't cruel, it's pure, clean, like the air in old temples or the first breeze after monsoon season. The pitmasters were all half-frozen men with enormous eyebrows and zero patience. You showed your permit, bowed low, recited the proper chant. Yes, there was a chant, and stood very still as they chose a block. There were rules, you see. Ice blocks couldn't be too symmetrical. Spirits hate perfection. Couldn't be touched with bare hands, either. Even breath had to be angled away. One apprentice once sneezed on a block, and they say his next 5 deliveries melted before noon. Whether that's true or not, no one has sneezed down there since. You remember when they first handed you your block. It was heavier than you expected. denser somehow, like it carried the memory of every winter since the empire's founding. It sparkled. You thought for just a moment that you saw movement inside, some flicker, some ripple, like a ghost shifting in sleep. That was probably the cold talking, or maybe the ice spirit giving you a little nod. Back then, your confidence was higher. Your silk wrapping was tighter. Your mint was fresher. And now, you're road-weary, sunburned, and you've aged a century in one afternoon. But you did it. Your fingers traced the coin the governor's assistant gave you. You roll it across your knuckles, then tuck it away like a secret. The rope tender interrupts your reverie by attempting to harmonize with a street musician playing an eru. It's a train wreck. You let him. You consider your next move. You could head straight back to the courier house, turn in your cart, and collapse into the nearest bathhouse. Or you could take the long route home. Let the evening settle around you like a second skin. You choose the latter. The cart rattles softly as you steer toward the quieter lanes, ones lined with night vendors, paper lanterns, and slow, lazy conversation. One elderly woman sells sorrow buns, allegedly invented by a grieving baker whose dough never rose again. You buy 3. They're delicious. The cat is still on your cart. Now she's napping, completely unbothered by your lack of cargo. And then, around a bend, you see it. A small shrine. You hadn't noticed it before, probably because it's half buried in vines and nestled behind a soy curd stall. A weathered wooden sign reads, "To the spirit of preserved things." You stare. Then you hop down. You light a stick of incense, courtesy of your ever-prepared emergency pouch, and place it in the clay holder. You bow once, then again, and whisper, "She made it." The smoke curls upward. For a second, it twists into a shape that might be a hand giving a thumbs up. Might be. You don't stay to confirm. You return to the cart. The oxen look at you with mild curiosity. "We're going home," you tell them again. This time for real. The rope tender groans. Finally, you steer back into the street, lanterns glowing like lazy stars overhead. Your cart is empty. Your coin pouch is heavier. And the ice spirit? You think she's smiling. The night is fully upon you now, and the city has changed again, softened, slowed, smoothed around the edges like a river stone rubbed by centuries of tide and time. The streets, once crowded with hawkers and hurrying sandals, are now dotted only with late walkers, lovers, and night shift monks chasing cats out of the temple gardens. You lead the cart along the quieter alleys, each stone echoing under Lee and Lowe's tired hooves. The air smells different, cooler, yes, but also sweeter. A hint of sesame oil lingers from a closed dumpling stall. Someone nearby is roasting chestnuts. Someone else is gently playing a bamboo flute that sounds like a lullaby for ghosts. It feels peaceful. And then a voice calls out, "Courier." You freeze, because that's never good. A man approaches from the shadows, tall, well-fed, draped in the robes of someone who owns more scrolls than friends. His hair is neatly oiled, his sleeves lined with embroidered cranes, and his eyes have that dangerously polite twinkle that says, "I'm about to ruin your life with perfect grammar." He holds up a slim dispatch scroll. Your courier bow, correct? Ice license class 3. You consider denying it. You consider changing your name to not Courier Bow and diving into a ditch. But you're too tired to lie. You nod. "Splendid," he says, already rolling open the scroll. "You've been recommended for a very specific evening commission." "Please no," you whisper. "Oh, it's a light task," he says, smiling. "Merely an escort job. No ice involved." You raise an eyebrow. "That sounds suspicious." He continues, "We need a courier to guide a foreign dignitary to the Hot Springs district. He's gotten quite lost. Speaks no local dialect. Bit dramatic. Possibly drunk." You glance at the sky, then at your oxen, then at your empty cart. The man adds, "There's payment." "How much?" He holds up 2 fingers. Silver fingers. You groan. "Fine." Moments later, you find yourself escorting a tall, sunburned man with a feathered hat and the gait of a pirate on stilts through the quiet streets of the capital. He's humming a tune that may or may not be an insult to every dynasty that's ever existed. He calls your oxen fat clouds. He calls you tall boy, even though you're neither. Still, you guide him through the district gates, across the bridge with the whispering carp carvings, past the moonlit tower of unclaimed scrolls, until you finally arrive at the Hot Springs guest house. You hand him off to a dazed-looking attendant who mouths thank you like it's a prayer. On your way out, a worker hands you a small pouch. Inside, 2 silver coins, a tea token, and a wrapped sesame cake. You decide the job was worth it. Back on the cart, you look up at the stars. Historian poets used to claim that stars were the tears of failed couriers, which is ridiculous. Failed couriers don't cry upward. But tonight, the sky does look generous. The breeze is cooler now, softer, the kind of breeze that drapes over your shoulders like a borrowed blanket. You steer the cart toward home. Your home isn't much, just a room above the stables behind the courier hall. But it has a straw bed that doesn't collapse, unless you ask it nicely, a window that overlooks the pickle vendor's roof garden, and a hook to hang your hat on. You reach it just as the night watch clangs the second bell. The rope tender hops off, groaning. He waves, mutters something about foot soaks, and disappears into the gloom. You tend to lee and low, pat their necks, rub down their flanks, offer them each a dried fig from your emergency peace offering pouch. They chomp happily. You whisper your thanks. Inside your little room, everything is still. You light a lantern. It flickers like it's sighing with you. You hang up your satchel, remove your scroll pouch, and tuck the silver coins into a hidden jar labeled Ice Emergency. You sit on the bed, the sesame cake still warm in your hand. You bite into it. It's perfect, sweet, nutty, just a little bit burnt on one edge, like it's been on a journey too. You lean back, and for the first time all day, you rest. You don't dream of melting. You don't dream of cracks or cords or clerks with suspicious nostrils. You just drift, and somewhere, in a distant pit beneath layers of rock and shadow, the ice spirit chuckles softly, already preparing tomorrow's block. Because there will be another. There is always another, morning, or something like it. You're not entirely sure. Because the rooster near your window crows with a time zone of its own, and the sun hasn't quite committed to rising yet. But your body knows it's time. Courier instincts, a gift or a curse, depending on how warm your bed is. You sit up slowly. Every bone objects. Your shoulders feel like they spent the night arm-wrestling boulders. You wiggle your toes, just to remind them they still exist. From below, you hear the familiar sounds of courier life waking up. A broom dragging across stone, oxen huffing. Someone cursing because they stepped on a nail again. Probably who? The barefoot optimist. You light your small incense stick, not for ceremony, but for the smell. It's a cheap blend of lavender and something called moon salt. It claims to improve mental clarity. What it really does is make your room smell slightly less like old boots. You dress slowly. Tunic, satchel, hat, tilted as always. You tuck the ice spirit token into your pocket. You still don't worship her, but after yesterday, you're at least on speaking terms. When you reach the courtyard, the master courier is already waiting. He's ancient, not old, ancient. His eyebrows have their own wind resistance. His voice is like dry rice cracking in a hot wok. You're late. I'm early. You're late to be early. You nod. That sounds about right. He hands you a dispatch scroll, sealed with black wax. Unusual. Formal. Probably heavy. You suppress the urge to sigh. Special commission, he rasps. From the Astronomical Bureau. Oh no. The last time you delivered something for the Bureau, it was a celestial map the size of a funeral banner and a clerk who refused to accept it because Mercury was in backward walking mode. Still, you nod. I'll take it. He eyes you. It's delicate. They always are. He doesn't smile, but he blinks slower. That's close enough. The package is wrapped and waiting. A long, narrow case made of polished cherry wood, tied with precisely 8 cords in a pattern that looks suspiciously like a lunar calendar. It's marked, "Do not tilt." You wonder what would happen if you did. Collapse of the heavens? Angry letter? Minor constellation shift? You decide not to test it. You secure it on your cart with cushions stolen, borrowed from the meditation room. Lee and Lowe seem suspicious. They smell the case and back away. You pat their noses. It's not ice, I promise. The road to the bureau is lined with sleepy vendors setting up their wares. You pass a man arranging fish in order of emotional expression. You pass a woman who sells haunted combs. By one, lose a memory. You consider stopping for a steam bun, but decide against it. Celestial errands probably don't like detours. As you trundle toward the observatory tower, you spot something that makes you frown. Another courier. You recognize the colors. Red sash, black boots, square hat. Imperial courier. High rank. The kind who gets scrolls delivered to them instead of delivering scrolls. He sees you too. He nods. You nod back. There's a moment of unspoken understanding. We are both cursed. But you slightly more. At the tower gates, the guards let you in without a word. One of them hands you a stamped scroll that simply says, "Place box on platform. Do not ask questions." You've never seen such a perfect summary of your career. Inside the bureau courtyard, astronomers in midnight blue robes glide silently between carved stone instruments. Some measure the sky with long sticks. Others whisper to polished mirrors. One is just staring into a bowl of water and nodding occasionally. You head to the platform, a raised circle of marble etched with stars, planets, and suspiciously many dragons. You set the case down. You back away. You wait. Nothing happens. And then, clang. The platform shifts. The case sinks into the floor. Gone. You blink. An astronomer appears behind you like smoke in human form. "Delivery confirmed," she says. "May the angles remain correct." You nod, slowly. She hands you a scroll. It's a receipt, but also an invitation. "Return at dusk," she adds, "for observation duties." Observation of what? She vanishes before answering. Typical. As you leave the bureau, the day begins in earnest. Sunlight hits the tiles like a gong. The smells of hot oil and miso fill the air. Someone's arguing over the correct spelling of phoenix. You pass a paper seller advertising scrolls for spiteful letters, discounted ink. You're about to head back toward the courier house when you notice something at your feet. A trail of small, vet footprints and a smear of mint. You freeze. No, 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 no. You turn slowly. And there, standing beside your cart, as if she never left, is the cat from last night. Proud, poised, and now sitting on top of a small, very melty ice bundle wrapped in silk you definitely did not bring. You sigh, loudly. It's going to be one of those days again. You approach the cart slowly. The cat glares at you, tail twitching in that judgmental rhythm cats have perfected over millennia. You look down at the ice bundle, small, barely surviving, leaking gently through silk and straw like it's embarrassed to be caught in public. You look back up. "I didn't bring that," you say out loud. The cat blinks once, as if to say you did now. You inspect the bundle. It's been expertly wrapped. Tight, elegant, silk from the southern prefecture, straw arranged in the four-knot pattern used by the northern pit couriers. There's even a sprig of fresh camphor tucked in for scent. You lift it gently, still cold. On the underside, there's a wax seal, red, with the imprint of a snail. You blink, because that symbol belongs to the frigid order of the snail couriers, a semi-mythical guild rumored to specialize in impossibly slow, but always successful, ice deliveries. No one's seen one in person in years. They were said to ride turtles. Literal turtles, not metaphorical ones. You look at the cat. "Did you steal this?" The cat yawns. You unwrap the smallest corner of the bundle, just enough to peek at the ice. It's beautiful, clearer than anything you've handled. Not a bubble, not a crack. It glows faintly blue, like a frozen breath. You rewrap it quickly. This is no ordinary ice. This is heirloom tier ice. The kind emperors commissioned to cool their calligraphy brushes in summer. The kind that gets weighed with gold. The kind that gets you noticed, and not always in a good way. You consider ignoring it. But the seal means it's not lost. It's in transit, and now you are in possession of it. You sigh. Why can't anything be simple? You check the straw again. There's a tiny tag, written in perfect brushstrokes. To be delivered, Pavilion of 1,000 mirrors. Before dusk. No tilting. No sunlust. No questions. Of course. Because why make things easy when you can make them absurd? You load the bundle onto a padded spot on the cart, next to where the cat still sits. She immediately drapes one paw over it like a protective ant. You mutter, "Fine. You're in charge of security." The cat purrs. The pavilion of 1,000 mirrors is real. You've heard of it. A meditative compound built into a hill at the city's edge. Its name taken from the fact that every wall is polished obsidian or reflective jade. Light bounces around like gossip at a wedding. Problem is, no one delivers to the pavilion. Couriers go in, but rarely come out on time. Some emerge days later, whispering about geometry and tea rituals that fold in on themselves. One returned with a full beard and a new dialect. But a job's a job. You head east, toward the slope of Whispering Hill. The road is quiet. Too quiet. You pass under weeping willows, across stepping stones carved with cryptic proverbs like "the coldest tea brews longest." Birds hop alongside your cart, but never chirp. Even Lee and Lo seem unusually well-behaved. You arrive at a gate made entirely of bamboo and silence. No guards. Just a gong hanging from a tree branch. You strike it gently. The sound isn't loud, but it echoes. Inside your bones. The gate opens. No one on the other side. Just a path lined with tiles, each etched with a different face and profile. You steer the cart in. Instantly, the temperature drops. Not a lot, but noticeably, as if the very concept of heat has been asked to wait outside. The pavilion appears ahead, low, wide, built into the hillside like a thought you're trying not to have. The walls are smooth, dark, and shimmer with vague reflections. You glimpse yourself. Then you glimpse someone not yourself. Then it's gone. You reach the main steps. A man appears. Thin, but robes of unbroken gray. He moves like a curtain caught in a breeze. "You have the ice?" he asks. His voice is soft but commanding. You nod. Snail sealed. He smiles faintly. "Excellent. The ritual will proceed." You blink. "What ritual?" He ignores the question. "Figures." He gestures toward the pavilion's entrance. "Bring it. Carefully." You and the rope tender, who has somehow reappeared from nowhere, eating a dumpling he absolutely didn't buy with your money, lift the bundle and follow the man inside. It's disorienting. Every surface reflects, but not clearly, just enough to confuse depth, distance, and time. You walk straight, but feel like you're circling. You turn left and somehow end up right. You pass a mirror showing you older, another showing you younger. One where the cat looks like an emperor. You reach the center. A dais, a bowl, and a circle of silent monks. The ice is placed inside the bowl. No one speaks. A bell rings once. The ice glows faintly. Another bell. The air thickens. Final bell. The light dims. The ritual ends. Everyone exhales. You're handed a coin, then escorted out. No explanation. No ceremony. Just a coin and a closed gate. Back on the cart, you sit in stunned silence. The cat stretches. You finally look at the coin. It's carved with a mirror and a snail. Of course. You stare at the coin a little longer. It's heavier than it looks. Smooth edges. Cool to the touch. It doesn't feel like money. It feels like a key, or a riddle, or a favor you didn't ask for, but now definitely owe. The snail engraving winks up at you in the sunlight. You tuck it into your pouch. You don't say thank you out loud, but you think it. The cat, now reinstalled on her perch, begins to clean her front paw, as if she's the one who just completed a metaphysical delivery to a monastery built out of illusions and geometry. You give her a slow nod. "Well done, assistant courier." She flicks her ear. Promotion accepted. You steer the cart down from a hill, back into the waking world, the real world, or whatever counts as real in this city, where ghosts pay taxes and clouds sometimes whisper bad poetry. You think the day is over. You are wrong. Halfway back to the courier house, you spot a figure frantically waving a scroll from the steps of tea shop. A middle-aged woman in green robes, hair a little wild, expression very wild. You try to steer the cart left. She runs right, blocks your path. "Are you Bao?" You sigh. "Yes." "Oh, thank the heavens," she says, shoving the scroll into your hands like it's on fire. "My son, he's in the examination hall. Took the civil service test today. I promised him a good luck lunch, but I burned the rice. Twice. And I think I summoned something. You need to take this instead. She shoves a bento box into your other hand. It's warm. Smells amazing. You open the lid. Perfectly arranged dumplings. Lotus root slices carved into little wheels. A hard-boiled egg shaped like a rabbit. The kind of meal that says, your mother loves you more than bureaucracy. You glance at the cat. She licks her nose. You sigh again. Where is he? All of refined failures. Of course, the most elite examination venue in the capital, where the pressure is high, the ink is dry, and hopeful scholars compete for the right to spend the next 30 years telling people how government should work. You turn the cart around. The hall is uptown. Massive stone steps, guarded by lions with opinions. You climb them slowly, carrying the bento box like a baby chick made of soy sauce and dreams. Inside, it's quiet. Dozens of young men in robes sit at low desks, scribbling characters with sweaty intensity. You scan the room. There, back row, slouching slightly, ink smudge on the cheek, clearly underfed. You walk up, place the box beside him, and whisper, "From your mother." He looks up, startled. Then he opens it. The joy that floods his face could power a small village. You walk away before anyone gives you a medal. Back outside, the cart feels like a familiar friend. The sun is now low. Lanterns blink awake, one by one. Li and Lo sigh in unison. The cat snores, curled in a perfect spiral. You head home. For real this time. But just before you reach the stables, you hear it. A faint splash. You freeze. Look around. There, by the well, a man is fishing, but not with a rod, with chopsticks. You can't look away. He pulls up a glistening, wriggling something. A cucumber? You blink. He notices you. Courier bow. Yes. Perfect, he beams. The Vegetable Guild has a message. We're short on pickled radish runners. Want the job? You stare, then smile. Tomorrow. He nods. We'll save the crunchy ones for you. Back at the courier house, you finally remove your boots. Your feet sigh. You think your knees just gave you a standing ovation. In your room, the lantern glows gently. You sit on your bed. You breathe. You made it through. An impossible ice delivery. A bureaucratic obstacle course. A reflective cult ritual. A surprise lunch detour. A cat with unknown motives. And a snail coin that probably contains ancient wisdom. Or minor magic. You lie back. And, for the first time in what feels like 100 reincarnations, you rest. You don't think about tomorrow. You don't think about the ice spirit, the snail, or the cucumber. You just close your eyes and float. You wake up to the smell of porridge. Not fancy porridge. Not ceremonial, 5-grain, gold-dusted emperor porridge. No, this is the humble kind. Street porridge. The kind sold by a man named Uncle who has no known relatives and stirs his pot with a ladle made from the leg bone of a retired crane. You rise slowly. Every joint cracks like an old scroll being unrolled. You glance out the window. Dawn is tiptoeing across the rooftops, carrying little bundles of cloud. You throw on your robe, hat slightly askew, and head down into the courtyard, where Uncle Who's cart is steaming away. He greets you with a grunt and a wooden bowl. You look like you delivered to the underworld, he says. Close. You reply between mouthfuls. Pavilion of 1,000 mirrors. He stops stirring, looks at you sideways. You see your future? You shrug. I saw a cat wearing my face. He nods. That's close enough. You sip your porridge. Thick, comforting, gently salty. Like being hugged by someone who doesn't know how to hug, but is trying anyway. The cat reappears, tail high. Expression smug. She sits beside you, waiting. You offer her a scrap of salted radish. She declines. Instead, she produces a folded note, from where you do not ask, and drops it in your lap. You unfold it. It's from the frigid order of the snail couriers. Gudi bao. Your handling of the heirloom ice has been noted. Should you ever require our aid, present the mirror coin under a new moon. Avoid mirrors on Tuesdays. In mild trust. Es na el marsal número 4. Slow but sealed. You sit back. You're not entirely sure if this makes you an honorary snail courier, but you do feel slightly more mythological. Later that morning, you stop by the courier hall to turn in your logs. The desk clerk, a teenager with excellent penmanship and terrible posture, squints at your scroll. You did all this yesterday? Roughly. Did you time travel? Only emotionally. She shrugs and stamps it. You're eligible for one rest day or a special bonus delivery. Your choice. You blink. Rest day. She flips the page. Too late. Special bonus it is. She hands you a small packet. No label. Just a whisper of lavender and a slight vibration of danger. You tuck it into your satchel. Where's it going? South Dock. Discreetly. You raise an eyebrow. Discreetly how? She grins. No questions. You sigh. You really need to stop saying yes to scrolls with smells. You gather Lee and Lo. They're eating leftover radish. You bribe them with apple slices and head out. The South Dock is its own world. Noisy, fishy, forever damp. Men with ropes for belts and knives for toothpicks shuffle around shouting things like left and more left. You find a contact. A woman wearing 4 cloaks and a monocle made of candy glass. She nods once, accepts the packet, and hands you something in return. A scroll. Not to deliver. To keep. The seal bears your own initials. You stare. You crack it open. Inside. From you. To you. Keep going. Even when the ice melts and the oxen grumble and your knees whisper curses. Remember, the world needs steady hands. And you have too. You read it twice. You don't remember writing it. You fold it carefully, tuck it into your inner robe pocket. By the time you look up, the woman is gone. So is the smell. So is the moment. You walk slowly back to the cart. You let the noise wash over you. The clang of anchors, the caw of gulls, the cursing of a dockhand who's dropped a barrel into his own sandal. And you realize something. You've changed. Not dramatically, not epically, but gently. Like water smoothing stone. Like ice melting into memory. You climb aboard. You head home. You pass a child pretending to be a courier. Oxen made of broomsticks, scrolls made of cabbage leaves. You wave. He waves back. By the time you arrive back at the courier house, the sun is lazily dragging itself toward the western rooftops, casting a soft, golden syrup light over the city. You and the oxen creak through the front gate like old friends returning from a gentle argument with destiny. Lee and Lo plod into their stable with all the ceremony of royal retirees. You unstrap their harnesses, give each a scratch behind the ear, and whisper your gratitude. They respond with the softest snort of mutual respect. The cat has already beaten you home. She's curled up on your bed again, head tucked under tail, twitching occasionally like she's chasing something important in her dreams. Probably dignity. You don't wake her. You just sink onto the floor mat, back against the wall, body sore in all the interesting places. And for the first time, you take a moment. Not a rush moment. Not a breath snatched between tasks. A real moment. You reflect. In the past 3 days, you've escorted a drunken diplomat to a hot spring without diplomatic incident. Delivered heirloom ice to a mirrored cult. Accidentally collaborated with the frigid order of the snail couriers. Received a message from your future self, or past self, or some version of you who thinks you need encouragement. And earned the begrudging respect of a magical ice spirit who may or may not live beneath the city, judging your posture. Not bad. Not bad at all. You remove the pouch with the mirror coin. Just holding it gives you a strange calm, like touching a memory you haven't made yet. You place it gently on your shelf, next to the half-used candle and the bamboo flute you've been meaning to learn for 4 years. Outside, the city is winding down again. Lanterns flicker on. Soup steam curls from alley windows. You can hear a lute playing in the distance, soft, slow, missing a few notes in the most charming way. The rope tender yells something obscene at a bird. Everything is exactly as it should be. You realize you haven't eaten since morning. You unwrap a dumpling from your emergency drawer. Cold, slightly chewy, but it tastes like victory. And soy. You stretch out on your bedroll beside the cat. She opens one eye, stares at you like you're invading her sacred nap realm, then decides you're acceptable. Your eyes begin to close. And that's when you hear it. A knock. You don't move. Another knock. Lighter. Polite. You sigh the deepest sigh your lungs have ever crafted. You shuffle to the door and crack it open. There stand a child, maybe 7 years old, holding a scroll so wide it drags on the floor. She blinks up at you with the innocent fury of someone told this was urgent. She hands you the scroll. You open it. It reads, "Tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp. Grand ice race. You're drafted. Bring oxen. No questions. Signed, Bureau of Public Festivals, Subcommittee on Entertainment and Mild Chaos." You blink once. You close the door. You stare at the ceiling. And then you laugh. Quietly, gently, with all the weariness and wonder of someone who knows. There is no such thing as a boring day in this job. But still, tonight is yours. You slip under the blanket. The cat purrs at your side. The city exhales through its alleyways. And you, courier bow, fall asleep, dreaming of frozen coins, mirror halls, and oxen with winning strategies. And now, dear listener, your body begins to quiet. You've walked the ancient city streets. You've carried heirloom ice through mirrored temples, faced cats with secrets and scrolls with sarcasm. You've done your duty and more. And now you rest. Let your breath soften. Let your shoulders fall. Feel the weight of the day melt away, like ice giving in to the sun. There is nothing more to carry. No scrolls, no steps, no errands. The city outside hums a lullaby of soft footsteps and distant bells. The ice spirit slumbers in her crystal cave, content. Even the oxen have stopped dreaming of carrots, and now float peacefully through their own frozen fields. You are safe. You are still, and you are part of a world that turns slowly, like a scroll being unrolled one quiet night at a time. There is no rush here, no urgency, just stories and sleep. So let go. Let the day drift behind you. Let the dreams come gently. And we'll meet again in the next story. Good night.